Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Ep.6 Chronicles Plus. In the last one we made our way to the mode of Burn, Bless, and saved Tarf here from his prison cell. And now we're gonna go do a couple of things before we actively take him back to the Colony of Lava. Hence why I'm dropping a save here. So what I want to do is feed Tarf every food item I have. Why? Well, this is an escort mission similar to the one with Fina back in Ys 1. And just like that, there is a way for you to boost Tarf's level. Feeding him enough food will boost him from level 1 to level 2, at which point he'll actually change his movement patterns a little bit. I'll fight too. At level 1, he'll just follow you around. At level 2 and above, he'll follow you around, but also occasionally throw rocks at enemies, meaning he can get the kill and get even more experience. Ultimately, Tarf maxes out at level 25, and there is an achievement for getting him that high. It's tedious, but it doesn't take the longest amount of time because of how low his level ultimately is at this point. Before I go onto the grind for that itself, though, I am showcasing the route to the Colony of Lava from his cell, just in case you want to do that outright to start. In fact, I'll put a timestamp on screen right now if you want to just skip past all the optional stuff. This is a neat idea, but it's so short that it really isn't worth doing unless you really care about achievements. In fact, if you don't care about achievements, I really don't recommend doing the other thing you can do with Tarf because, well, it's a follow-up on another thing from a similar section in Ys 1, and it was creepy there for reasons. It's even worse here. We're already a room away from the Colony of Lava, though, so once we reach where the bridge is, we're going to jump cut back to the room after the room with Tarf's cell, and then head the exact opposite direction. In specific, we want to drag Tarf slowly over back towards the entrance to the mode of Burned Blessed. Along the way, he's going to be fighting a lot of enemies. He can die pretty easily, though, even with his ability to attack, and honestly, the best way to get around this is the altar magic. Because if you just walk into the enemy as a room and get the dialogue box, Tarf can still move and attack enemies during it. It just interrupts the text box. So as long as you stand right here like this until that he gets a hit in, you're going to be pretty safe. Just got to keep in mind the MP drain that the spell slowly has, as you can see. It's like one every like 3 seconds or something like that. Because this is a very slow process, though, once we leave this room, we are going to be speeding this process up, as I think this genuinely took about 10-15 minutes on its own, and that would be an entire video unto itself, effectively. I do find it kind of funny, though, that this is the easier achievement between it and the one with Fina back in Ys 1 when you're helping her escape the shrine and all that. But I find that achievement more interesting, if only because largely it's one monster and you're done. And on top of that, you have the mirror, potentially, to just make that a complete joke. The fact this takes as many enemies as it does makes it feel like it's, I'm not going to say tedious in this case, but definitely a little drawn out in its punchline, I guess. As I think a way to do an achievement like this, maybe to get him to like level 10, because then you put in some effort, but not all the way to get him to level 25. But that said, Tarf is still going to be very fragile throughout this, so save regularly just to save yourself some pain. If memory serves, largely a trip over to where the other achievement we're unfortunately getting is, and back to the Colony of Lava. Most of the enemies along the way there should be enough to get him around level 25 on its own. If not, you can just idle around in the last area grinding enemies back and forth right before taking him in. Our ultimate destination on this little side trip with Tarf is the room where we got the iron ore last time. Mister, I'm kind of worried. We seem to be getting farther and farther from the village. I think he gets lines like that as far as the entrance of Burned Bless, which neat that they have a little dialogue about that. Not really necessary, but it's a neat detail all the same. With that said, I should note, while Tarf is following you, you do need to kind of pace your movement, as if you move too quickly, he will just kind of stay where he is or get locked into a corner on like one of the little gaps of lava right there, and you have to go back and get him. And if you leave the room without him, you will have to go back and grab him all the same. So it's not the worst escort mission in the world, but depending on how you try to rush through it, you might have some problems. Okay, so here's the room with the iron ore. Time for one of my least favorite achievements I've ever earned. Where the iron ore is, we want to get Tarf into that corner. You can try to use the fire spell to sort of push him along the little curved passageway here. With that said, I did save a moment ago because, well, I don't like this achievement, and I don't like the idea of at all going through the rest of the journey having done this, so I'm going to reload the save after I showcase how to get this achievement, just because, ew. Ew, ew, ew. Mr. Adel, don't you think you're crowding me a little? Yep. That's absolutely fucking disgusting. Adel, I have called the police, and you need to get the hell out of my house. The equivalent achievement in Ease 1 was kind of off feeling as it was, but at least you could go, okay, it's the usual pervy anime moment, blah, blah, blah. We do the same thing in a lot of old sitcoms and all that when it comes to women. Why do it with the kid? Weird. Weird, weird, weird. Moving on from that, though, we're on our way now to the colony of lava proper with Tarf, as I've done everything I can with him, so we're going to progress with the plot. I do take a moment here to grind that specific Skolan, though, for an extra level with Adol, because I was pretty close as it was. Also worth noting for the Tarf grind, trying to get him up to level 25, you can use healing items on him to recover his HP, because he won't be able to use an in or anything like that otherwise in the game. So let's get him back into the colony of lava and move on with plot. Do have to kind of guide him just across the first, like, halfway point of the bridge, which feels kind of awkwardly placed for a cutscene. Tarf! Thank goodness. Tarf, you're not hurt? You're alright? I'm fine. No big deal at all. Not like I'm scared of the demons even one little bit. I am kind of hungry, though. I see. Well, let's get some food into you, then. Okay. As for you, I don't know how I can ever thank you. I'm so sorry for what I said to you before. If not for Mr. Adel, I don't know what would have happened to me. I could have been left to starve, and man, that would be the worst fate of all. Well, this has been a real eye-opener for me. We can't allow the demons to keep doing things like this. Time to lower that bridge. You show him, Dad. Fight the machine. You have someplace to be, no? I'll lower the bridge for you right away. And we get some extra experience for finally bringing him home, too. But before I go talk to them, I'm going to go back to Lance Village real quick and get more herbs, apples, and marl flowers, as I use them all up at this point. And not only do I want them for potential healing, I also want to give them to someone around here in town. With that said, before I actually go talk to the person I really want to talk to, I am going to talk to a couple of NPCs really quick, just to note that at this point in the game, similarly to what happened with the people of Lance Village a couple times by this point, really, every single NPC's dialogue here in the Colony of Lava has updated once you have rescued Tarf. And if you want to see all the dialogue, or at least as much of it as you can, you might want to go see what they have to say now. I believe in a moment I do end up jump cutting to the person I actually want to talk to around here. I want to talk to Nash, who's on the northwestern side of the town. In specific, I want to give him food items, just like we did with the little girl over in Lance Village, as we can get another food item from him if you give him enough food. Something about characters like this, by the way, I didn't mention this back when with the kid back at Lance because I didn't have the fire spell yet when I did that. But on average, it takes between 3 to 5 food items to get the main food item from an NPC like this. But if you hit them with the fire spell to see their dialogue, their trust value instead of HP effectively goes down, and it'll take more gifts for you to actually get the item in question. This is why I don't really do that outside of the first time I got the fire spell to get the achievement from that. Now, I forget if I already did this earlier in the LP at this point, but if you're having trouble farming together the food items for this, for one thing, you can do it in multiple visits, so you can say, go get marl flowers, come here, give him marl flowers, then go restock at Lance Village. But if you're trying to get as many as possible, I'm actively not sure what kind of timer the apple respawn works on, whether or not it's time or like screens traversed or all that. For right now, let's get the final item for this specific quest line. Thank you again. You're such a faithful man. I'd imagine that even women with beauty rivaling that of the goddesses would be able to unable to resist your charms. May the road ahead be blessed for you. And for that, we get a piece of raw meat. Despite that being raw, you can just straight up eat it, and it is a full health recovery, similarly with the meat pie we got earlier in the LP. They say it can get spoiled. I don't think that can actually happen, though. And now, after I have gone a bit to restock my items once again, we gotta do that one more time with someone else back here at the village. we want to give stuff here to Theo, who we got the pie from earlier in the LP, actually. Similarly to his sister and the prior NPC back at the lava colony, you need to give him roughly 5 healing items for us to get an item from him. Though if there's anyone who you're more than likely gonna have to give more food items to because you may have burned him a couple times with the fire magic when you were going wild with it, it's probably gonna be Theo here. But ultimately, since you're right here at Lance Village anyway, grabbing marl flowers is literally a 10-second trip, effectively, so not really worth worrying about at that point. At this point, I believe we're on the second to last dialogue for Theo, so let's give him one more item and then move on from here. For me? Huh, well, you've been really nice, so okay. I'll give you some of my best smoked meat in return. This is good stuff, I promise. I'm an expert chef. More meat. Go on, savor the flavor. I dare you not to love it. Also, just to be blunt about it, you might remember when we first visited the colony of lava and we got turned away, but then we went on the quest to rescue Tarf. There was a jump cut right before I talked to Ruba, I believe, the second time? That's because for some reason, every time I revisit this game, I think I can get the raw meat as soon as I reach the colony of lava, but no, you need to have rescued Tarf. Also, just as an update, since our duties here at the Moat of Burn Blessed are almost complete, as well as our duties at the colony of lava to begin with, this is roughly how many character notes you should have in your notebook, all the way through Druzy at the end of the Rue Village. And as for enemies, you should have the entire first page, most of the second page here, these 2 enemies have not been missed, as well as a couple entries on the third. The 2 enemies that aren't listed there are at the ending of this area, but they're counted as before, like, the Durgas for some reason. I'm assuming it's either some sort of behind-the-scenes leveling thing, or maybe literally what order the enemies were designed or placed into level design in. Though actually, and I'll note this after this upcoming cutscene, the notes for enemies and characters in East 2 are a lot easier to grab than they were in East 1. Mr. Adel, you're being watched by demons, right? You should get out of here before anyone finds out I escaped. If you go this way past the lava-filled regions, you'll reach Ramia Village. You all set to go? Oh, the Whisper Earrings? Keep them. They may serve you in your journey. I still cannot tell if that's just a really well-animated 2D sprite set there, or if that actually is just a low-poly 3D model. There we have it. Off you go, then. So what I mean about the notes in East 2 being easier than they were in East 1. Ease 1 had the very prevalent point of no return. Once you entered Darm Tower, you couldn't go back out, so any enemy nodes or characters you didn't talk to yet are completely inaccessible. Ease 2 doesn't really have that. To my knowledge, I don't think there's a single missable enemy or character node. I'll do some more research after I finish this commentary pass to see if I'm right about that, but to my knowledge, I think I'm completely right on that. So if you're ever missing something, just look it up and see where that enemy or person is and go grab them. There are some NPCs, admittedly, who move about throughout the campaign. Hell, as we've seen, Lilia has vanished and Bots has completely disappeared, supposedly from Lance Village as well, but largely, you can grab anyone at any point. Right up till the actual final boss, of course, which technically at that point you're locked in for the ending. The final few rooms in the Mode of Burn Blessed here can be kind of rough, less so for the length, it's actually a very short area at this point. But for the enemies themselves, as even at my levels, they can do some pretty decent damage if memory serves. With that said, once again, not too bad of a grinding location because the enemies do give a good chunk of experience. That was like, what, 30 there from the Gene? Sure, they could give more if I was here a little earlier, but hey, I'll take it. With that said, because we're approaching the end of the area, I am briefly in front of the pause door, gonna go jump cut away and grind out the enemy notes we're missing. Compared to other areas, I actually have some of them already filled out at this point because of the enemies that Tarf killed alongside me when we were grinding up his levels. But still, not too many areas around here. Largely, I think the area that has the most enemies is, well, by and large, the final area. But there's very distinct reasons for that we'll talk about later. For right now, let's go jump cut away and show the levels I get along the way. I believe I gained 2 distinct levels while grinding the enemies around here, specifically the Magnutes helped with that a lot, but same did the Genes. So I'm topping out at this point at around level 30, and we have all these enemies maxed out. We're now moving on to the third page, effectively. Save before the boss fight as usual. The Hawk Idol can be useful here, but I prefer the Claria Ring for this specific boss fight. And save, because genuinely, this might be my least favorite boss fight in the game. This is Gelaldy. Gelaldy is a really creepy head that'll just move towards you. Outside of that, it only really has one attack, opening its mouth and sending out its tongue, entrails, pet worm, which will slowly approach you but is completely invincible. You need to bait this thing around to dodge it for one thing, yes, but the only time you can actually damage Gelaldy is while its mouth is open, either sending that worm out or calling it back in. This means you have a very tight window to hit it to begin with, but also you got a giant worm to contend with for space, so this can be really rough to maneuver yourself around. If you just kind of pace your steps, you can bait it around at a different rate than you do the main head, but I've never liked this boss fight. It's, I think, the worst boss fight in the game by and large. Not exactly hard, more just precise. As we get lower in its HP, though, it will start summoning some more genes to act as pawns as well whenever it opens its mouth. But that's not too bad to deal with. Another thing that can help is that if you're just slightly to the side of the worm when it's coming out, you can at least try to worm, appropriately enough, a shot between it and the edge of Gelaldy's mouth, but you can see the precision here is notable enough that it actually can be annoying in some cases. Very impressive sprite animation in this specific version of the game, though. Also, have I mentioned this game's soundtrack is good yet? Because, oh my god, Falcom never misses on soundtracks especially. This specific version of the Ys 1 soundtrack has a lot of really cool instrumentation going on that I just really like. Theoretically, a strat that you could do is to try and bait the worm to one corner of the map while leaving Gelaldy and another on top of that. I think you can fire your shots at Gelaldy beforehand to kind of knock them away. So that way, whenever it's calling the worm back in, its mouth is open for longer. But that's just unreliable enough for me that it's not really worth the effort. Not a fan of this boss. But hey, that's only really like 1 out of like, what, 8 or 9 I think in the game total, plus that I'm not a big fan of. Most of the other boss fights, as savvy as they might be able to feel at times because of the overuse of the fire spell, I think are much better boss fights than they were in Ys 1. With Gelaldy out of the way, the moat of Burned Bless is complete. It's sort of, there are a couple more rooms on the way out, but there's no enemies in them, so this is effectively just a victory lap. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we're going to explore ourselves the next town, Ramia Village, and see what's going on around there. See you guys then.